Okay guys, so welcome back again. So this is part 2 of the Strapi video series. So if you haven't watched my first video about Strapi and you don't know that what Strapi is, then I would highly recommend that you should go and watch the first video or the part 1 of this series. Otherwise, if you're just here for user management, the API tokens and the admin management inside Strapi, then you can continue ahead with me. And before we dive into the code, make sure that you hit that like button if you like the video, of course, and do subscribe to the channel for more content like this. So in the previous video, when we created a Strapi application, we created an admin user. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to log in with that user here. And it should be .gmail.com and the password would be admin123. So let me log in here. So now if we have a look here inside the settings of this application or this Strapi dashboard, we see that here we have two kinds of users. One is the administrative panel and the other is the users and permissions plugin. So as you all know that this users and permission is a plugin inside Strapi, and we all know that we can increase the functionality of Strapi by adding as many plugins as we want, which are available in the marketplace. But by default, this user and permissions plugin is installed by default. And then we have one more thing here, and that is called API tokens. So before diving into the users of this administration panel and this users and permissions plugin, what I would like to do is that I would like to create an API token for my application. So currently, if we go to our application, and let me minimize the terminal here. So let me clear all of this here. So let me make a GET request to an API endpoint that we created in the previous video. That is localhost port 1337 to get all the products here. So if we make a GET request, we would be getting back a response here. And that is because we made this API endpoint to be public. So anyone in the world can go to this URL or on the URL on which your Strapi server is hosted, and he can get back all the products. But what if you only want this response to be available inside your front-end application, and no one else can get no one else can hit this API? So what can we do? So firstly, we need to go inside the roles and permissions thing here. And the thing which we did in the previous video, that is inside the public role, we made this product to be able to create, read, update, and delete only for demonstration purposes. So I am removing all the checkboxes, and the same thing I would do for the find and find one. So let me save this. And if I go back here, and if I make a request now, we see that we get back a forbidden error. So how can we get back a response here? By providing some kind of an API key so that I would be able to show the products on inside my front-end application, which may be built upon React or Next.js or Vue or Angular, whatever the front end you are using. So how can we get this products? So it is pretty simple to do in Strapi. So what we need to do, we do not need to touch the administration panel user or the user and permissions plugin. We simply need to go to this API tokens thing here. And here what we need to do, we need to create a new API token. So I can call this token by any name. So I would simply say read only, and it is for a reason I'm calling it read only, because the type of token this is read only access. That is, we would only be able to read the content from inside our Strapi backend. And whereas full access means that you would be also able to create your content using this API key. But for now, let's simply keep it read only. So let me select read only, and here if you want you can provide it in description, but I'm simply going to click here save. And now we have this API key, and it says that we need to copy this token, otherwise it would be hidden forever. So let me copy this token from here, and let's click on save, and let's go back to our API token. So now here we have our read only API token. So what I can do, I can go back to my application, and still if I make a request, nothing happens here. We always get this forbidden error because we need to use that token somehow. And to use this token, we need to provide that as a bearer authorization header. And to provide that, we simply need to write authorization, that is the bearer, that is the authorization header. And then we need to simply write bearer, and then we need to paste in the token. And there is a space between this token and bearer. And it's a typical authorization header with the bearer as the first string, and then a space, and then the token. So now if I make a request here to get all the products, we see that we can get back all the products. And this is super helpful if you want to create your front-end application and you want to get a list of list of all the products or whatever data is inside your database, then you can use this kind of a read-only access token. But what if you want to also create the product by using this kind of a authorization header? So what we can do, we can simply make a post request to this API endpoint. So let me copy this, let me paste it, let me change it to post, and this time we would be creating a product. So let me firstly provide in the content type. So content type would be application JSON. So this all you know from the previous video, so this is nothing new here. And for the data, I need to provide in the name. So name, let it be like product one, and we need to have a price, so let it be 100. So if I make a request here, we would be getting a forbidden error, as we can see here, and we get a syntax error, and that is because of this comma thing here, and it was not a valid JSON. So now if I make a request again, we see that we get back a forbidden error. But if we try to use the same authorization header inside this route or inside this post call, we should also be getting a forbidden error because this token is only for read-only access. If I make a request here, we again get back this forbidden error. So you can differentiate it from this date time here. So what we can do, we can go back to our application, and here we can create a new API token, and here we can simply call it full access like this, and the token type would be full access. And let me click on save. So now we need to copy this new token from here, and then we can go back to our Strapi application, or sorry, that's not the Strapi application, but to our API call manager. And here I can make again a request. And for those of you who are not coming from the previous video, so this is a REST client extension that I'm using inside VS Code. So let me show it to you again. So this is called REST client. So this is the REST client extension I'm using inside VS Code. So it is super helpful to make API calls simply. So here, what I can do, I can simply make a request again. So let me minimize the sidebar. So if I make a request here with the full access token, we should be able to create a product here. So if I make a request here, we see that this product is created. And we can also validate this by going inside the content manager and going to the product section. And we see that this product with an ID of 8 is created on this date. So this is how we can use the API tokens provided by Strapi. So now let's come to the first type of users inside a Strapi application. So if we go to the administration panel, we see that we have roles here and we have users here. And the only user which we have currently is this truly method, which we registered as an admin user, and it's a super admin, as we can see here. So we can see that this is a super admin. And if you go to the content manager, we also see that there is one more kind of a user here, in which we do not have any users. And the users which are present here would be coming from the user permissions plugin, that is from this user and permissions plugin. So make sure that you understand the differentiation between the users. So these users are for the administration panel, whereas these users, which would be created in a moment, would be responsible for accessing the API and not the administration panel. So let's go back to the settings. So currently we see that we have this user here called truly method with super admin access. But what if you also want to create a new user so that they can also have some kind of an access to your administration panel? So what you can do, you can click on invite new user. So here what I would do, I would simply name this user as John Doe, and let his email be johndoe@gmail.com, though it's a fake email. And now we can provide a role to this user. So either we can create another super admin inside our Strapi application, or we can create this user with the role of editor and with the role of author. So let's create this user with the role of editor, and you would see that what all changes you would see on the Strapi dashboard. So if I click on invite user, we can simply copy this URL from here because it says that copy and share this link to give access to this user. So let me copy this thing from here and let me click on finish. And what I'll do, I'll simply log out from this application. So how do I log out from this application? So let's click here to log out. And now what I'll do, I'll go to this URL here, which we just copied. And now we see that we are here to create a new editor. Maybe I chose editor, I don't remember. So here what I can do, I can choose a password for this user. So admin123, admin123. That's the default password that I chose. And now what I'll do, I'll simply click on let's start. So now we see that on his dashboard, that is on the editor's dashboard, that is called John Doe, we have a different kind of a side navigation bar. So here he can only see the media library, he can see the settings, but here he is not able to see all the settings. Neither he is able to create a new admin user or a editor or a new author. He can only see these settings, that is the general overview of the application. And if he goes to the content manager, we see that he even cannot see the collection types and the single types because we do not have the permission to access that content. So what I'll do, I'll simply log out once again for this user, and I would be changing this user's permissions so that we have something to access. So what I can do, I can go to settings, and this is again from the super admin dashboard. So users, so we have this user John Doe as editor. So now what I would do is this, that currently this role called editor has no access to whatever content is inside our content manager, because as you already saw that there was no content visible for this editor. So what we can do, we can go to this roles tab here for this inside this administration panel and not inside this users and permissions plugin. So we can go to this roles thing here, and here we see that for the super admin we have one user, for the editor we have one user again. And as it says that editors can manage and publish contents including those of others, whereas author can only create his content and he can only manage his content. So like author is the least privileged role here, editor is more than author here because he can also manage content of others also. And then we have the super admin, which is like a superpower. So what I can do, I can go to this tab here or this or I can click this editor button here, and then we can decide that what all things this editor can see, or what all things a user with a role of editor can see. So let's say that he can see the products, all the products. He can do all the create, read, update, delete things for the category also. Like he can create, read, update, and delete. And now let me save this. And now if I go back, we can log out from this super admin and we can log in back with this John Doe at gmail.com. And here we can need to provide in the password. So if we go to the content manager, we see that this time he is able to see all the collection types to which he is authorized for. So here we can see that he can see all the data that is present inside our REST API that we created, or the collection we created, that is the product and category relation. So this is how we can allow or create a role or like adjust a role for the editor. So by default, Strapi provides you with like 3 roles only in the community version. And if you want to create more roles, then you need to go for the paid version, which I highly don't recommend because like community is super powerful and it can be customized by yourself. So now let's log out from here and let's go to the super admin user. So because we need to check out the user roles and permission plugin. So now let's go to the settings here. So here inside the users permission plugin, we see we have the roles, we have the providers, because by default only email password is allowed or enabled by default, though we can allow any end user for our application to use any of the providers. Like he can use Auth0, he can use the AWS Cognito, he can use the Facebook login, he can use GitHub logins, he can use Google logins, Instagram, LinkedIn, so on and so forth. There are plenty of providers here inside this users permission plugin, but mostly people are going to use this email provider. So currently this is enabled. And now if you want to also enable Google thing here, that is the Google provider, then we need to provide in the relevant ID and secret and the redirect URI and so and so forth. But I'm not getting into the details of the Google provider for authentication. I'm simply focusing on this email provider here. So now if we go to this roles tab here, we see that we have 2 kinds of roles here, authenticated and public. Public is public, authenticated means that the user needs to be logged in somehow. And it is a default role given to an authenticated user, though we can create any n number of roles here, but that would be like tedious to do in this video. So currently what is happening here is this, that our public user does not have any access to only has access to this, let me also remove this access from the public access. And for the product, let me only create the find and find one for public access. And let me save it, and category also find and find one. And rest all create, delete and update would only be done from an authorized user, that is the user who is authenticated. So let me save it. So now the thing which would be coming to your mind, that is, how do we create a user? So it is pretty simple to do. You need to go to the content manager, you need to go to the user here, and here you can simply create a new entry. So for the username, let me provide in truly Mittal, and the email would be trulymittal@gmail.com. And you might be wondering that I use this email for admin purposes, that is the super admin uses this email. So how can I use another email for a front end user? And it is because those both the things are separate, and both the things are stored in a separate database. So admin users are stored in admin database, or whatever admin table or something like that, whereas this user and permissions plugin users are stored inside another database. So therefore, we can also have a user with this email inside this new data, inside this user permissions plugin database. So password 123456, and then whether this user is confirmed or not. So let's click on true, and then we can also make this user as blocked, so that he won't be able to access, he won't be able to log in, and I would show you that in a moment. So let me see what the password is here. So here we have the password 123456, and the username is truly Mittal. So let me save this. So now let's go to this user table. Now we see that we have one user here. And now what I'll do, I'll simply create another user here, and that is called Jane Doe. And it would be Jane Doe at gmail.com, password 123456, and let it be not confirmed. So let's click on save, and let's go to the users table or the user collection type, and we see that we have two users here, one with an ID of 1 and with an ID of 2. So now that we have created two users here, so you might be wondering that how do we register these users from the front end application? So I would be coming to that later on in the video. It's not, you need not worry about that. First, let's see that how do we make this user login from a front end application. So let's go back to our REST client, and here what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove each and everything from here. So let me remove this, and here instead of a GET request, I need to make a POST request to API auth /local. These all URLs are coming from the user permissions plugin. You can check out the Strapi documentation for that. But if you are comfortable with me, we can simply use this endpoint here to make the user login by making a POST request to this user to this route here. And then we need to pass in the content type would be application JSON, and then we need to provide in some kind of a JSON body here that would contain the email of the that would contain not only the email, but it can contain either the email or the username of the user. So that would be called identifier and not email. So this is one of the things that people don't understand easily, that they would be running into trouble because they would be providing here email instead of identifier. Like instead of spelling identifier here, they would be writing here email, and the application throws an error and they do not understand. So I highly recommend that you just remember this thing here, that is here you need to provide in the identifier, and identifier can be anything, either the username or the email address. So first, let me simply use the email, only the username here, and then we need to provide in the password. So password was 123456. So let's make a POST request and let's see that if we are able to get some data back. So let me make a request here. So we see that we get back a response here. So this is the response here. How do I increase the font size? Anyways, so inside the response, we get back a JWT here. Then we have the user details. That is the details about this current user. And as we saw that we use the identifier as username here, truly Mittal, not the email here, but only the username here. But we can also use the email as the identifier here. So what we can do, we can either provide here at gmail.com. So this would again work here. So let me make a request again, and we see that again we get back a response here with the JWT here and the user object here. And we also have the provider, the confirmed, whether the user is blocked or not. So now we see that we get back a JWT. So before doing something with the JWT, let me show you that how blocked thing works. So if I go to this user here, and we are inside the administration panel, so let me block this user. That is, this user is blocked. So let me save it. Let's go back. And if I make a request again to make this user login, we see that we get back this error here. That is, your account has been blocked by the administrator. So this is something kind of pre-built in Strapi inside the user permissions plugin. That is, you do not need to worry about how to add all the functionality about user authentication inside a Strapi, inside any of the application, whether it would be Strapi or whether you would be using an Express application. It's all baked inside this permissions plugin. So let's go back and let's unblock this user here. So let's save it and let's go back. And now if I make a request, we get back this JWT. So let me copy this JWT somewhere inside my clipboard. And now what I want to do is this, that currently, if we go to the settings here, we have this roles here. So the public role simply allows us to list all the products, but we won't be able to create a product. So let's do that as well. So let me make one more request here. So get HTTP localhost products like this. So if I make a request here, we would be getting back a list of all the products. But what if we only want to return results only if the user is authenticated? So whatever the API would be, I only want to return the results if this user is authenticated. That is, we do not want to return the results for the public. We only want to return the results if the user is only authenticated. So what I can do, I can remove these two find and find one from this products collection from the role of public. So I can save this, and if I go back, I won't be able to access this endpoint. But instead what we can do, we can go back here and we can go to this authenticated role and we can go to the products collection, and here we can enable find and find one as well as let it be find and find one, because you already know that we are inside an authenticated role here. So we can also create a product here, we can also delete a product here, we can also update a product here, only if the user is authenticated. So let me save this. If I go back and if I make a request, we won't be able to do so. So for that, we need to provide in some kind of an authorization header again, like the way we did inside an API token. So for that, what we need to do, we need to provide an authorization header with the type of bearer token, and the token would be coming from this JWT. So we need to copy this JWT from here, and we can use this JWT inside as a bearer token here, like this. And if I make a request here, we see that we get back the response here of all the products inside our database. In the similar way, we can copy this route or this thing from here, and we can again use it to create a product, because we allowed the authenticated user to create a product as well with the bearer token. That is, whether if he is only authenticated. So here we need to provide in data, and data would be like a name would be, let's say not product 1 but product 2, and price would be, let's say 100. So this should be like 100. And again, the content type should be application JSON. I do not need to miss this thing here. So if I make a request here, we see that we created this product here. And if I go back to a Strapi dashboard and we go to the content manager, we go to the product here, we see that we created this product here. But at the very same time, we can also block this authenticated user to not being able to create a product. So we can go to roles here, authenticated product. We should not allow him to create a product. So if I save this and if I make a request again, so let me call this product 3. And if I make a request here, we see that we get back a forbidden error. Though it does not mean that this JWT is expired, because we can get back a list of all the products as we can see here. So this is something very powerful from this plugin here. So now let's have a look at one more thing, that is, how do we make users register to our application? We know that how to make users log into our application, but now let's see that how do we create users from the front end of our application. So for that, what we need to do, we need to make a post request to some endpoint. So that endpoint would be like API auth local, and let me paste it here, /register, like this. So by making a call to this endpoint, we would be able to register our users inside our database, that is inside our user permissions plugin database. So here the content type would be again application JSON. So application JSON like this. And then we need to provide in a JSON body here. So here we need to provide in three things. You might be thinking that you can only provide an email and username, but here we need to provide in three things. Firstly, we need to provide in the username of the user. So let's call it test. Then we need to provide in the email, and the email, let's say test at test.com. And then we also need to provide in the password of the this user here to make this user register. So if I make a request, post request to this endpoint, I would be able to register this user, and we see that we get back an error here. And that is because this should be separated by 3 hashes here because of this VS Code plugin I'm using. So if I make a request here, we see that password must be at least 6 characters. So we have the password validation as well. So let's do 1 2 3 4. And if I make a request again, we see that we created this user and we already got back a JWT. And what if I simply make a call again with the same user, we would be getting a validation error again. So email or username already taken. So if we go back to our content manager and we go to this users thing here, we see that we have this user called test.com, and he is automatically confirmed. So this is how we register users inside our application. And now what more you can do with this user permissions plugin is this, that we can go to our content manager and let me create one more content type here. So let me create a new collection type called post. So post and post. So continue, advanced settings, no draft and publish system. And let's click on continue. So the text would be titled for a post. It would be a short text. It would be a required field. And let's add another field called text, long text. And it would be, let's say, description like this, and it would again be a required field. So let's add another field, and it would be a relation. So a post can belong to one user, that is let me choose here. Here on the left side we have the post, and on the right side we want to relate it to the user from the user permissions plugin. So again, as we see that here we have two kinds of user, one from the administrative user and other from the user permissions plugin. So I'm going to choose this user permissions plugin user here. And now here we are going to choose this kind of a relation where a user has many posts. So inside the users thing, we would be having a field called post, whereas inside the post field, we would be having a single field called user. Simply like this. I renamed this field. So that our user would be, or user field would be called user here. So now let me click on finish, and now let me click on save here. So it would restart the application. And now if we go to the users collection type here, we see that here we added our own post collection, post field here that was created when we created this post collection type. So these fields which are logged are not configurable because they are a part of the user permissions plugin thing. But this field is created by ourselves. So now if we go to the content manager, we have this post collection type. So let's create a new entry here called title. So like how to use a Strapi. And for the description as well, let me copy and paste it here. And now we can provide in a relation to any of the users. So either this post can be related to Truly Method or Jane Doe. So let's use Truly here, or let me use Jane Doe here. So let's save it. And now let me go to the post thing here. And if I go back and if I want to query all the posts, so what I can do, I can go to my settings here, roles here, authenticated here, because I only want to show all my posts when the user is authenticated. So here I can simply do find and find one. And now inside the user permissions thing also, I would be doing find and find one. I would be telling you why that I'm doing this find and find one. So let me save this. And if I go back here and if I make a request to get all the posts, so let me scroll down. So get HTTP, not S, but localhost API posts like this. And here we need to provide in the bearer token. So let me copy this bearer token or the authorization token from here, somewhere here. And if I make a request here, we would be getting back a list of posts here. But what if we also want to include the user, we can simply say populate equal to user. So if we make a request again, we see that we do not see the user here. And why is that? So let's go back once again. So post, okay, not for the role. We need to do it for the user thing here. We did it wrong here inside the role thing. We need to do find one and find inside the user tab here, not inside the role tab, but inside the user tab here. So let me save it again. And if I go back and if I make a request here, we see that now we get back a list of all the posts with the related user to which this post belongs to. So anyways, I just gave an overview, that is how do you use user permissions plugin with your own content type. So guys, that's all about this video. So if you have liked this video, do hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel till now, do subscribe to the channel. And in the next video, we'll see that how do we create a custom controller by using the Strapi CLI. So till then, thank you, bye bye, tata, take care, and have a good day and have a great day.